Should Ryan Day manage Ohio State's football team like he's coaching in the NFL?
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now, I understand some of you may have heard NFL right there and been like, wait, is this still a college football podcast? It is about your Ohio State football team, but Ryan Day might need to use his experience in the NFL to manage the Buckeyes in 2024. Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Buckeyes. Here on Tuesday, March 19th in the year 2024. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Joining us during today's show, it's my guy, our guy, Jeff Hunt of the Jeff Nee Sports Podcast, the OG3, the Off the Ball Network. He's a busy man. He is back here once again. And in the pre-show conversation, Jeff actually gave me a thought. I wrote down in my notebook about a show we're going to have in the future. But today's show is all about Ohio State and how Ryan Day should manage a roster in the world of playoff expansion. And Jeff, I do believe Ryan Day needs to use his experience in the NFL to manage the Buckeyes roster. You got a 12-team playoff this year. In a couple years, potentially a 14-team playoff. That experience from the NFL will help Ryan Day this year, next year, and every year he's coaching the Buckeyes.
Yeah, this is a great subject matter. It's something that needs to be thought about. I would like to think that Ryan Day is going to be slightly ahead of, the curve on this one. Like, we went from a time, way back when to where it was like, play as much as you can, get as many style points as you can, get to one game and hope you get voted for a national championship. And then it went to a BCS, but you still had just the one game. Then we had the playoffs, but it was still like, it's just one extra game. It's one extra game. You still needed the style points, but you could slip up a little. But it was still like, man, we got to, like, just like we saw last year, like Florida State got left out, because of an injury. There was still a lot of human factor involved, a lot of style points. We're at the point now to where you got a little more, leniency on getting in, but you might have to play at least 3 more games, tough games.
Man,
because here's the thing, this is my biggest thing about college football that, like, we talk about, like, yeah, you got to play. It's easy to say, like, it's 3 more games, might be 4 more games, for the a lot of the teams. Here's the thing, though. A college football team doesn't typically play more than 4 tough opponents in an entire season. This is going to be back to back to back to back after coming off a conference championship game. So you're potentially going to have to beat the second best team in your conference and then either go on the road or at home, beat another good team that got in the playoffs. And then you're going to get a team that got a bye. You're going to get the best team. You're going to get one of the top 4 teams of the country next. And then the next week, you're going to get one of the top 4 teams of the country and then a championship game. Like, that is crazy. College football's never heard of a 5-game stretch like that in the history of college football. We've never had anything. I don't care how good you think, teams are on your schedule. They're not 5 of the, they're 4 of the 5 or 4 of the 5 are the top 10 teams in the country. So, like, you got to have wherewithal, and you got to think about it as you got game one. You got to be thinking like, hey, we might have 4 extra games this year. So I think it's very interesting. I would hope to think that, his experience in the NFL, especially, coaching with some of the, coaches he coached with, that he would be ready for this moment with this roster.
Jeff, you're talking about that stretch between conference championship game and then potentially a home game, potentially another game, then the Final Four, then the Natty.
Yeah.
You forgot Michigan. Like, in that whole conversation.
Yeah.
Spitting this drink out.
That's true. Most of these teams are going to have a rivalry game too before the conference championship game.
It's insane to think about that stretch. No matter if Michigan's number 2 in the country or not ranked, doesn't matter. That is always one of the toughest games Ohio State plays every year, physically and emotionally. And when you factor that into following that up with a potential rematch the next week,
week, more than likely the next week you're going to play Oregon, Michigan, a better Wisconsin team like that. That's what you got to follow up. Like for years, honestly, the East has got to go, they got to play one of the schools from the West. Like you got to come off the Michigan game and play sometimes a good Wisconsin team, sometimes an average Northwestern team. Michigan's played a much, much lower level Iowa team. No offense to them, but Michigan was way better than them a couple times.
Yeah.
But this ain't that.
No.
Whoever you play the week after your rivalry game is going to be potentially the second best team in your conference. And we're talking about a good conference. We're talking Washington, USC, Michigan, Oregon. Oh, come on.
And to think about this, though, Jeff, still thinking about NFL and like managing like an NFL team. What's to say the ACC folds and you got Florida State and Clemson that want to go to a team or a conference that makes a lot of money, that has a lot of competition? Yes, I understand. Wisconsin and Iowa are not viewed like USC, Oregon, Washington, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. They're not viewed like that. You realized last year going to Camp Randall is not like going to other places in the country. It's a night game. It's tough. Ohio State walked away with a 14-point win. You're like, oh, it's Wisconsin. They're not good. No, that's a hard place to play. And so if Florida State and Clemson come in, like this competition up here is a whole lot different than we thought it was going to be. And when I think about, Jeff, more about the experience Ryan Day has, I used to be a style points guy. I used to love the BCS. I know it wasn't the best for the sport. I'm acknowledging that. But I realized that style points were one thing. That's why Urban Meyer was a great coach for that time period. He loved the style points. He could get them. Yeah. But at some point, you have to preserve the body. And I'm thinking about one position. I could go every position if I wanted to. Running backs have been hurt for the past 2 years at Ohio State. And if you think about the longevity of playing you're playing extra games that mean a whole lot, that are emotionally and physically taxing, you're going to want to have Henderson, Judkins, and Hayden as healthy as possible. And what you're going to have to do, let's just say, Jeff, Ohio State locks up a spot to have a bye. They're a lock for the conference championship game, and they're really, let's say lock up. You can only do it by winning the conference championship, but let's just say they're going to do it, and they're playing a team like they beat pretty soundly in the regular season. They think they're going to win it. They lock that up, but that's the conference championship week. Before that, you got to make sure your guys are healthy.
Yep.
You have to. So let's just say game 10, game 11. Once you're up 25, maybe you normally keep your guys in till you're up 30, but you're like, wait, we're up 25. We're not losing this game. Let's bring backups in earlier than normal to preserve the bodies of our players for the long haul, which is a college football playoff. This week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. The Yukon Huskies can only be described as an armada. This top-seeded team is as hardcore as it gets out there, so it's no wonder they've landed the top overall seed in the NCAA tournament. They're one of the favorites to win it all, despite 4 of the 6 Power 6 conference champions standing in their way in the East region. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs as well as a Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening week for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. The Locked On College Basketball Bracket Breakdown Show is now available on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Experts Andy Patton and Isaac Shade will break down their brackets and discuss everything you need to know to fill out a winning bracket and prepare for this year's NCAA tournament. Find the Locked On Bracket Breakdown now on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, wherever you get your fine podcast. And now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah. And another thing, like you brought up the running back position, it's definitely really hurt Ohio State. I mean, it feels like it's been since, the big two with Weber and JK were there. It's like, it's just so like, hey, we're so close. And then, a dumb ankle injury or an early season, knee or this or that. Like you're going to need the running backs, that late in the year for that stretch run that we talked about. But also here's a double-edged sword, and this is what the NFL runs into. And this is why the NFL, the running back position, has become what it's become, is because you need that position. But guess how you grind out these games and shorten the clock? Running the ball. So now you have a catch-22 of like, we got to keep running the ball. We just want to get out of here with a 21-point victory or whatever and grind some clock. But guess what? Now that means your running backs are on the field. That means your running backs are getting hit. So if you can, they can come up with a great rotation for these running backs and get them mixed in there. Because I think that's the key. What I don't like with the running back position is when they're like, okay, you're going to play for quarter and a half, and then bang, this guy's going to get the next 3 series. Like, to me, the running back position needs to be just on a rotate, just kind of almost like basketball or hockey. You know what I mean? Like a couple runs for you, get out of the game. I think that's how, I think you break up the runs more than just have a, because that seems to, it doesn't seem to work. Because if a guy runs the ball 10 times in a row, it seems like that's when the risk is more than if the guy runs it 15 times a game. It's how many in a row and the fatigue and obviously there's no way to predict injury, but to me it's about, and on every depth, Ohio State's got a lot of depth, maybe the most in the country. I don't think I'm crazy to say that. Like, you got to come up with rotations. Even a defensive back, that's another big one. Like, Burke can't play every snap of the season, and then we think that he's going to guard, whoever's going to be in the playoffs. There's going to, whether it's Oregon, LSU, Alabama, Florida State, like all these teams that are like, we can't have Burke, Hancock, all these guys worn down. And then that starts and you're a little dinged up, or, you're going to have a good rotation. Like, you're going to have faith. You might give up some points, like you said. It may not look like it does, when Justin Fields there and it's unstoppable and, nobody can get within, 40 of them and all. It may not look like that. It may look more like trestle ball, and people are just going to have to get used to it. But if a guy's dinged up and you're like, I wonder if we should hold him out, you might have to do that. You might have to eke some games out with some backups and really, grit your teeth and do some coaching. It's going to be really, and this isn't the only team that's got to deal with this, but we're doing a Ohio State show. Right.
No, dude. Think about Trestle ball. Trestle was winning. His formula may not have been the sexiest out there or getting all the clicks if it was social media time period, but he was winning. And I think right now what Ryan Day needs to do is realize, hey, we have to preserve our bodies for the long haul. And even if we're not blowing everybody out by 30, but we're winning and we're showing everybody that we're still the best team or one of the best teams in the country, one of the best teams in the conference, I think that means a whole lot more than those BCS style points that that teams needed to have. Literally, you're trying to have style points via a computer system that needs those numbers to boost you up and move you up the ranking. A flawed system, but that's what they utilized. That's just where we were. Jeff, when I look at the schedule here, and I think when thinking about managing the roster and using like an NFL and maybe resting guys a little bit earlier than normal, this schedule sets up pretty well for Ohio State to be pretty healthy throughout the season.
Nice.
I mean, you got Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall. All 3 of those are at home. On the road at Michigan State and East Lansing. You got Iowa at home, which is a sneaky good way to play Iowa. I don't want to go to Iowa. I don't want to go out there to play them. Never, ever. The one game that it may be a little bit tricky is at Oregon.
Yeah.
But that's before a bye week. So there's 2 bye weeks this year. One of them is after playing Oregon. You come back home against Nebraska, and I think they're going to be a better team than expected. So I am looking at that's going to be a better matchup than it has been over the past few years. On the road at Penn State, home against Purdue, on the road at Northwestern that might be in Wrigley Field. Not sure. You got IU at home against Michigan, the Big Ten championship. So as I look at this and I run through that on purpose, the Iowa game at Oregon, at Penn State, home against Michigan. Those might be the 4 toughest games on Ohio State's schedule. And it's really 3, Jeff. Oregon, Penn State, Michigan. You can boil it down to those 3.
Yeah.
And that's what it should be every year. Whatever West Coast school you're playing, that's a school that's like, hey, that's a game that's circled. And then you got Penn State, Michigan. And Ryan here realizes the schedule helps me out, but I have to help the team out as well. He's done it via the coaching staff that he's compiled and put together. But, man, I really think the experience of Will Howard, the experience of these 2 backs, the elite defense the Buckeyes should have, there's be a lot of guys that are backups on defense that get a whole lot more playing time than normal because Ryan Day's trying to save those bodies, but also he realizes he may need, as you mentioned, sometimes you may need those backups on the field later in the season during crucial points. So if you get them some playing time early, it'll help you out late.
Yeah. You got to get those reps in there. That's going to be the developments, like, on the job training this year. Like I said it before the show, I'm not worried about the young guys. No offense to them. I'm glad they're there, but Ryan Day needs to get some stuff done.
Let me stop you real quick. Our buddy Mo said that Julian saying a true freshman quarterback or a young quarterback should be starting at Ohio State this year, be the day 1 starter. And I did a segment about that, just kind of pushing back on purpose, just because Mo understands, like we push back. But I'm like, in the moment, I didn't push back. I let Mo talk. Mo was flowing. I'm just let him go. I don't know if Will Howard's a clear-cut guy that's better, but I also don't think a guy who just got on campus, who's never played college football before, is going to be the guy either. So I don't know, man.
And here's what I would say. We're both right. Yeah. He could be a day 1 starter against Akron. We ain't worried about Akron. Like we're talking about week 5, versus Oregon. We're not worried about the starter versus Akron. So yes, could he beat Akron? I do believe I think probably all 4 of the quarterbacks could beat Akron. That ain't what we're talking about here. We're talking about a guy getting in there, getting the feel for his team, getting reps with his running backs, getting reps with his offensive line, getting in touch. Like we need Will Howard. When we go to Autzen Stadium and it's going crazy, we need 2 yards and we're just like, hey, big boy, like, how are you feeling? We need to get this done. We need to grit this out.
Hey, you need to put that tush push in the playbook, bro.
That's right. So that's what we're talking about. So do I think that these kids can win 8 games on this? Absolutely. But that's not what we're talking about here. Like we're building a championship team. Like, it's just gonna look different. Like it's not gonna be as flashy, not gonna be as many awards. You know what I mean? Like Egbuka ain't back he ain't winning the Blitnikoff, and he knows that. Running backs, they're not winning Doak Walker. They know that because this is about championship. This is about the playoffs. That's why they're there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not about the Heisman this year. It ain't about the numbers. This ain't gonna be the CJ Stroud year of a couple years ago. This is going to look totally different. The overall offense and yards and defense, everything going to look good. But this ain't about individual performances. This what the irony of this Ohio State team is going to be is that it looks like when you have a bunch of players transfer in and all the NIL money and all that, it looks like a quote unquote I team. It's about me, not the team. But that's actually the opposite. Because there's no way that Judkins goes there if he's worried about winning the Doak Walker. There's no way that Henderson stays. You know what I mean? He could be in the NFL. Like all these guys, actually, it's a very unselfish team. Denzel Burke, he didn't have to come back. Sawyer, JTT, none of these guys had to come back. So which tells me that they're like, hey, we've done all that other stuff. Now it's time to win some games, win the big game finally. Like I want to feel what it feels like to play for Ohio State. And know what it's like to be, to win that game, and to go into the playoffs. So I actually feel like this is the perfect team to implement. It's this an unselfish team. We're not here for the awards. We're here for the big one.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Once again, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. This episode is brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more. And the best service in Central Ohio. And guys, check this out. Billiards Plus carries grills that have up to 30-year warranties. That's right, a grill with a 30-year warranty. Everything you need for in-home and backyard entertainment is at Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus carries pool tables from Brunswick, Alhassan, Canada, Billiards, and more. And the grills, whether you like charcoal or gas or wood-fired, Billiards Plus has a perfect setup for all grillers. They are family-owned and operated. And when you talk to the staff at Billiards Plus, you know you're talking to an expert who won't steer you wrong. Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole staff will always go above and beyond to give you the best customer service in the industry. Billiards Plus. Visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. You know, that unselfish part you talk about with the players, dude, that's going to be big. Because Ryan Day might manage his team different than he has ever before with this core group of players, they are going to have to say, hey, coach, team first. I understand my numbers might not look the same. I understand that my playing time might be a little less than normal. But that's always following with the mindset of your mindset, Coach Day, following, hey, you realize this is what we need to do to get somewhere that we have not been since 2020. That is the conference championship game, getting that trophy, and the national championship game. But this time winning the trophy, you got to do things you've never done before to get to a place you've never done before. And I think the unselfish part you talk about, when I think about necessary adjustments the team needs to make, be unselfish. Realize it's not about me or I. It's about the team. And if the coaches believe this is the best way for us to get to the promised land, then let's follow them as they lead the team throughout this upcoming season.
Yeah, it's absolutely it. And what another thing I like about, like you touched on it earlier, like what are we talking about here? We're talking about that we all think that this team is going to hinge on the running back position. Like I think we all believe that that's going to be the difference this year, is having this running back group that we haven't had, this full, force that, in a long time. And it's like that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about them being unselfish, them being healthy, going in, hopefully going into the playoffs with at least a 3-back system, a formidable, like real, NFL potential running backs. Like that's what we're talking about here, and those guys, I think this is why they're there. And if in like all the concerns about you talking about management, like in any concern there would be about like, well, running back, like how's Henderson going to feel without carries? Man, these dudes want to go to the NFL. Guess what they don't want, Jay? They don't want carries.
No,
they don't want to like, no offense to that other team that did it last year. They did it their way. They don't want to carry the ball like that. They want an NFL career. They know every carry. I swear running backs know that every carry is one less carry they get at the tail end of their NFL career. So they're all about like, I want a 7-yard average. I want 15 touchdowns, but if I only run for 500 yards, that's fine.
Yeah.
And we win, and we win. You know what I mean? Like you got to win, but they're not there. Like I say, they're not there to pile stats up. They've already done that. You know what I mean? Like they're there to look good and win and help a team win, and then get out of there. Like, Henderson don't want to be a workhorse, and he shouldn't. And you only got so many miles getting beat up like that. So like it's a good. I don't think it's gonna be. And then we talked about it. We got Chip Kelly. And Chip Kelly, like, good offensive coordinator, understands the running game, understands multiple running backs, like we talked about on our last show. Like this is a guy this isn't a Derrick Henry offense. This is a a group, a running back group. And if a guy's dinged up, he might be able to take 2 games off and not miss a beat. Like, yeah, anything. We also know with injuries, anything can go wrong. But we can't predict that just the same way we can't predict any of it. So, like, I think these running backs are all on board. And, like, I'm happy to share. Like, I want to be partners with this guy. Like, man, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's a good thing. And, I think Chip Kelly understands it as much as anybody, being full steam at the end of the season. I think Ryan Day, I would hope, understands it by now. I think these players understand it by now. They have been good late into the season, and they know what it takes. Like, they remember that taste in their mouth that Missouri had for them when Missouri was ready to play that game. And they know what it feels like. They know what they know what Georgia felt like 2 years ago. A lot of these guys, like, they know what it feels like. It's like when it goes up a notch. So I think, like, they shouldn't have to talk these players into anything. He just needs to be like, this is the game plan from day one. This is how we're going to do it. So what's going to look like, but this is how I think we can get to the promised land. And then I think we just hope he's right.
Jeff, I got a thought. It wasn't in my thought with my notes before the show, but as the more you talk, I think about how I felt about Ryan Day after that loss to Missouri in the Cotton Bowl. Also, after the loss against Michigan, and really throughout the past few years, I was really high on Day. And then my thoughts about him and my belief in him keeps going down. So as we're talking about things that Ryan Day must do, the team must do, I'm asking myself internally, do I believe Ryan Day will do what's needed for Ohio State to get there? I'm sorry, bro. I want to believe. I'm having a hard time saying yes right now. I really am. I understand all the offseason changes with the coaching staff. One is not done because Alfred just went to that team. So now you got to fill that spot now. I think I would trust Chip Kelly, at least on the offensive side. Not old team, at least on the offensive side. I don't know if my belief in Day to do the right thing is there right now, and that kind of scares me, bro.
I mean, we've seen both sides of it. We've been hard on Ryan Day. We've done shows about literally taking Ryan Day's job. But what we have seen, he's been pretty prepared in the big playoff games.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, he's got that on his side. We saw that, like, he made all the right moves and all the right hires. He did everything he could do in the offseason that we asked him to do. So this is hard to do. And I'm not trying to pin last season on one player, but, like, I wonder what that season looks like if it's not McCord and it's Fields, if it's Stroud. Like, I really I hate to be like that. I apologize to McCord, but I can't help, like, Jay, I listen to a lot of, I'm sure like you, I listen to a lot of national media, a lot of different podcasts, a lot of different takes. I ain't heard one person that I respect in the football community defend McCord's play last year. Like, the overwhelming consensus is that I don't know how Ohio State got to where they were. Yeah. And if that's true, then great. Like, I hate to say that, but great. I hope that was the problem the whole way. And he was, because when you really go back and look at those games, it was like, thank goodness Marvin Harrison was there. Like, so many of them. So, like,
you're right.
I don't know. And he did get through big games. Like he was, let's look at this. Let's be optimistic. He was there. He needed a player to get a few more plays, and they're in the playoffs again. So, like, I'm hoping that it's as simple as that, that he needs a field general to help him, and then bringing Kelly in and stuff, that, all that's going to help. Do I think that Ryan Day, he's not one of those coaches, we say it all the time. He can take his team and beat you, and he can take your team and beat you. I don't think Day's that guy, and I'll admit that. And I don't think he's expected to be. I don't even think he wants to be that guy. You know what I mean? He's not Nick Saban. He's not, one of these guys. But I do think he's a guy that's like, if you give me the guys, then I think I can beat you. And I'm fine with that, because that's what Ohio State's built on.
So he's kind of like he's kind of like this generation's Les Miles.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, if you give me the talent, boy, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you just give me what I need to work with. So that's what I'm basing everything on. Do I think? Yeah, I do. I think he can take a bunch of upstarts or a young team and upset. Nah, I don't. I really don't. But I don't think he's there to be that guy, because why would? Ohio State doesn't need to hire that guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? We just hired that guy in Diebler for basketball. Great decision. We need a guy to get pretty good talent, a little better, and get them competitive and get them over the top. Ohio State football ain't that. I say football is like you got, like I said, you got all the best ingredients. All you got to do is make a decent dish out of the best ingredients in the world. It don't have to be great. It don't have to win any awards, but you just it's going to be hard to screw up. Like, just don't screw it up season for Ryan Day. How about that?
Hey, I'm right there. Just don't mess it up. Don't screw it up. That decent dish though, bro. I do like that analogy there. I really like that, and it makes a whole lot of sense. I want to believe. Well, the one thing about McCord that I have said, he's not a bad quarterback. He just wasn't an amazing quarterback.
Yeah, he wasn't a playoff quarterback. That's all.
Correct.
That's fine.
Correct.
That's
correct.
Fine. And by that, I do think he would have beat Missouri. I want to be clear. I know we've already done this show. I just want everybody, like, he just wasn't next level. He wasn't C.J. Stroud. He wasn't Justin Fields, and most players aren't.
Correct. I will say.
I think we think if Caleb Williams was there last year, like Ohio State's in the playoffs. That's
my gosh. Caleb Williams would have. They would have won the national championship.
That's what I mean. So yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, Day's got a little better ingredients this year. Should be fine. And honestly, some of the teams he's going against are taking a step back. There ain't nothing wrong with that.
No.
Michigan took great advantage. 2 years of a terrible schedule. They ain't their fault.
No. And honestly, Ohio State's schedule is kind of like their non-conference last year. It's really easy.
Let's put it this way. I always look at it this way. If Alabama had next year's Ohio State schedule, like, we would be like they're in the playoffs. That's what I'm saying.
In a 14 playoff, not a 12. We're talking about a 14.
No, I'm talking about a 14.
Yes. I know what Jeff talking about. I'm talking about a 14 playoff. In a 12 team, you're Ohio State. You should automatically be in because you have that kind of talent. If Ohio State misses a 12-team playoff, I think Jeff and I will. Neither one of us have a lot of hair, and Mo doesn't either. I think all of us might be just like, man, let's pull my hair out. This is insane. I don't think it's going to happen though. I don't.
Nah, it's going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Jeff, this show was fun. A lot of fun having you back on. You can follow Jeff on X at jhunt006. You can follow yours truly on the same platform at jstevens07. Guys, this has been Locked on Buckeyes here on a Tuesday. We'll see you next time.